All right, today we are diving into R.C. Sherriff's incredible World War I play, Journey's End. And you should forget everything you think you know about war stories, because this isn't about glorious battles or heroic charges. No, this is a story about the agonizing, mind-numbing reality of just waiting.
So, picture this. The entire play is set in one place, a cramped, claustrophobic British officer's dugout near Saint-Quentin, France. It's March 18th, 1918. And for the men living in this hole in the ground, the air is just thick with the dread of a German attack they know is coming.
And that, right there, is the genius of this play. It's not about the fighting, it's about the waiting. It's a psychological pressure cooker. And it really digs into how different people cope when they know, for a fact, that an overwhelming enemy force is just days and then hours away.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. We'll start with the claustrophobic setting, then meet the officers who are just trying to hold themselves together. We'll look at the unbearable tension of the wait, a truly faithful raid, and then, finally, the devastating attack itself. So first up, what was it actually like in these trenches? Let's, set the scene.
The reason this play hits so hard is its raw authenticity. The playwright, R.C. Sherriff, wasn't just making this up. He lived it. He was an officer on the front lines. And he just brings to life this grim, rat-infested reality and that constant gnawing anxiety of knowing the enemy is on their way.
Okay, now let's meet the men who are at the very heart of this story. Because when you're trapped in a space this small, it's their relationships, their personalities, their private fears that really drive the whole story.
So our introduction to the company commander, Captain Stanhope, well, it's not some grand entrance. It's literally just gossip. We hear from another officer that he's basically turned to the bottle to deal with the insane stress of his command.
But see, that image is immediately challenged by Lieutenant Osborne, who's Stanhope's loyal second-in-command. He reveals the real story. Stanhope is actually a brilliant leader, a hero who's been pushed to his absolute breaking point after 3 straight years on the front line. And what's so fascinating is how each of these guys represents a totally different way of coping with the unimaginable. Stanhope drinks. The older paternal Osborne, who the men call Uncle, is the rock of stability. Young Raleigh is still running on boyish excitement. Trotter is obsessed with food and thoughts of home. And then there's Hibbert, who's desperately trying to fake an illness just to get out. So as that clock ticks down, the psychological pressure just builds and builds, and you can really start to see the cracks forming in everyone's composure. And this isn't just a timeline, it's a countdown to oblivion. The second that news hits that the German attack is officially coming on Thursday, that knowledge just poisons every single conversation, every little interaction in that dugout. This tension really comes to a head over something as simple as a letter. Stanhope is completely paranoid that the new guy, Raleigh, is going to write home and expose his drinking problem. So he forces Raleigh to hand over the letter. But when he reads it, there's nothing but pure hero worship, and the shame that Stanhope feels is just crushing. Then, the fragile peace in the dugout just shatters when Stanhope confronts Lieutenant Hibbert. Hibbert claims he has this terrible nerve pain and he has to go home, but Stanhope is not buying it for a second. He sees it for what it is, pure fear. Stanhope actually threatens to shoot Hibbert for desertion right there on the spot. But just as Hibbert completely breaks down, Stanhope's anger suddenly gives way to this shocking moment of empathy. He confesses that he feels the exact same terror every single day, and that they have to face it together. It's an incredible admission of shared vulnerability. But this brief moment of unity, it gets immediately destroyed by an order from high command, an order that is completely detached from the reality of their situation. The colonel comes down and delivers the orders. They have to conduct a daylight raid on the German trenches. The goal? To capture a single prisoner for intelligence. Stanhope is absolutely livid. He knows it's a suicide mission, ordered by generals who don't want to disrupt their dinner plans. And man, this order just perfectly illustrates the giant chasm between innocence and experience. To the new guy, Raleigh, it sounds frightfully exciting, but the veteran, Osborne, knows exactly what it is, a death sentence. And of course, it's the two of them who get picked to lead it. So the raid is technically a success. They managed to capture one terrified young German soldier, but the cost is just devastating. The beloved Uncle Osborne is killed, along with 6 other men. Raleigh is left completely shell-shocked,
and the company has lost its moral compass. Osborne's death is the final straw, and it sends the play hurtling toward its tragic and, honestly, inevitable conclusion. Later, Stanhope's grief just explodes into pure rage. When Raleigh challenges him, asking how they can just sit there and eat after Osborne's death, Stanhope just unleashes on him. He screams that drinking is the only way he can forget, the only way he can possibly stand the unbearable weight of it all. And then, Thursday morning comes. The waiting is over. The German offensive kicks off with a deafening artillery barrage. In the middle of all that chaos, Raleigh is hit by shrapnel, his spine shattered. He's carried back down into the dugout, mortally wounded.
In these last, just devastating moments, Stanhope's entire hardened exterior completely melts away. The captain is gone. He's just Dennis again, gently comforting his dying childhood friend, Jimmy. After Raleigh passes away on Osborne's bed, Stanhope gets the call to go back to the battle. He walks up the steps, out of sight, just before a shell hits the dugout directly, and it all collapses into darkness.
The play ends right there, in darkness, and it offers you no easy answers. It just forces you to ask, what is the true cost of war? Because it's not just the lives lost in the heat of battle, but the humanity that gets chipped away in the agonizing silence of waiting for it.